He stood in my kitchen like he didn't belong there. One hand resting on the counter, the other twisting his car keys. The sound of metal against his palm was the only thing breaking the silence between us. I hadn't seen him alone like this in months. Not since my sister's birthday, when they both smiled too much, the kind of smile that hides something. Now it was just him, and that smile was gone. The kettle behind me clicked off, but I didn't move. Steam curled into the air, ghosting between us. "You said it was important," I finally said. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. He nodded, swallowed hard. "Yeah, it's about her. Her, my sister. The one who used to fill every room with noise, laughter, motion. The one who hadn't answered my calls in weeks." Something inside me went still. He looked tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep could fix, the kind that comes from pretending for too long. There were faint shadows beneath his eyes, a small tremor in his fingers. I tried to read his face, but he avoided my eyes. Instead, he stared at the cup I'd poured him an hour ago. The coffee had gone cold. "She's fine," he added quickly, too quickly. I mean, she's okay. That kind of sentence never means someone's okay. I didn't sit down. "What happened?" He hesitated, a long, uneasy pause where the refrigerator hummed louder than it should have. He exhaled. I didn't know who else to tell. That sentence hit harder than it should have. Because we weren't close. Not really. He was 10 years younger than me. Barely 30, always polite, a little shy. The kind who never said much during family dinners. Always deferential, almost too careful. I used to think it was sweet. Now it felt like distance. He rubbed the back of his neck, his posture tight, nervous. It started months ago, before the trip. What trip? He flinched a little, like he'd said too much. Outside, the afternoon light was fading, gold leaking into gray. The house smelled faintly of rain and burnt toast. Everything about the moment felt heavy, suspended, like something important was about to happen, but hadn't yet. "I didn't mean for it to get this far," he said quietly. My heartbeat picked up. "Get what this far?" His jaw tightened. "You're going to hate me for this." There was a tremor in his voice, something caught between guilt and confession. He looked at me then, really looked, and for the first time I saw it, the fear, the shame, the way his eyes flickered as if searching for a way out. "Just tell me," I whispered. He opened his mouth, but before he could speak, the front door creaked open. My sister's voice echoed down the hallway. "Who's here?" He froze, and whatever truth he'd come to tell me, it stayed trapped in his throat. My sister's footsteps were quick, familiar, uneven, the way she always rushed through a room like she was late for her own life. When she appeared in the doorway, her hair was wind-tangled and her cheeks were flushed. She stopped when she saw us, her eyes darting between me and him. "Oh," she said, smiling a little too fast. "Didn't know you were here." "I texted," he said quietly. His voice had shifted, softer, more careful now. She looked at me. "Everything okay?" I nodded. "He just dropped by." It was the easiest lie I'd ever told, and somehow the hardest to say. She walked over to him, touched his arm lightly, too lightly, and I caught the flicker in his posture, the brief tightening of his shoulders. It was subtle, almost invisible, but I saw it. They stood there for a beat too long. Then she turned to me. "You should have called. I'd have picked something up for dinner." "It's fine," I said. Didn't plan on staying long. But none of us moved. The air felt thick, heavy with something unsaid. Outside, the wind pressed against the windows, and a loose branch kept scraping the glass. She busied herself with the kettle, reheating the same water he and I had already ignored. I watched her from the corner of my eye, the way she avoided looking at him directly, the way her smile came and went like she was holding in place. They used to be different. When they first got married, he used to look at her like she was sunlight. I remember their wedding, small, unpolished, the kind that felt real. She'd been radiant, happy in a way I hadn't seen since we were kids. But lately, something had changed. He'd grown quieter at family dinners, distracted. She'd started canceling plans, skipping calls. And I, the older sister, the one who always worried too much, tried to stay out of it. Until tonight. Now, standing there, watching the space between them, I realized I wasn't imagining it. There was something, and he'd come here to tell me before she walked through that door. She placed a mug in front of him. "You look pale," she said, her tone light but her eyes sharp. "Everything okay?" He hesitated. "Just tired." She nodded slowly, not believing him, and looked at me again. That measuring look siblings share when words aren't safe. "Stay for dinner?" she asked, her voice thinner now. I wanted to say no, but instead, I heard myself say, "Sure." She smiled, too wide this time, and went to the fridge. Behind her, he glanced at me. His lips parted like he wanted to finish what he'd started earlier. But all he managed was a quiet shake of his head, almost a warning. And that was when I knew, whatever truth he carried wasn't just about her. It was something bigger, something that would pull all three of us into it. Dinner felt like a play we hadn't rehearsed well enough. The three of us sat around the table, pretending to be normal. The forks clinked too loudly against the plates. The smell of roasted chicken hung in the air, but nobody was really eating. My sister talked. She always talked when things got tense. Stories about her coworkers, a funny thing the neighbor said, how she couldn't find her favorite scarf. But her laugh came half a second late, like she was reading from memory. Her husband barely said a word. Every time she asked him something, he'd nod, maybe hum a response, and stare at his plate. I watched him, not out of suspicion at first, but because I could feel something breaking quietly inside that silence. The kind of silence that says too much. When she left the table to answer a phone call, the sound of her voice drifted down the hallway. Muffled, bright, forced. He finally looked up at me. "I shouldn't have come here," he whispered. My chest tightened. "You said it was important." He hesitated, rubbing his temple. "It is. But she doesn't know I was planning to talk to you." "About what?" He opened his mouth, but her footsteps returned before he could answer. The words died in his throat again. She sat back down, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear, her eyes flicking between us. "Everything okay?" "Fine," he said quickly. The word hit the air wrong. Too sharp, too final. She gave him a long, searching look, then turned her attention to me. "You seem quiet tonight." "I'm just tired," I said. "Long week." But she didn't believe that either. Dinner ended early. She started clearing dishes, and I offered to help, though none of us really needed to. The clatter of plates in the sink filled the room like static. Behind her, he stood near the doorway, his hands buried in his pockets. His eyes met mine briefly, a flicker of regret, of something close to fear. "Can you drive me tomorrow?" he asked her suddenly. "Car's acting up again." She glanced at him, her expression unreadable. "Sure, unless you're going somewhere else first." It was a small sentence, but it hung there, heavy, pointed. He froze. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing." She smiled too tightly. "Just asking." For the first time that night, he met her stare, really met it, and something unspoken passed between them. Years of small lies, missed words, quiet disappointments. The wind outside howled against the windows again. When I finally left, the air felt colder than before. Halfway down the steps, I heard the door open behind me. He called my name. I turned back. His voice was low, trembling. "Please," he said, "don't tell her I came to you first." And before I could ask why, the door shut again. I didn't sleep much that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face at the door, pale, tense, desperate. The kind of look people have when they've already crossed a line and can't find their way back. By morning, I'd replayed our entire conversation a dozen times, searching for meaning between the pauses. "Don't tell her I came to you first." The words clung to me like smoke. It was still raining when my sister called. Her voice was bright again, too bright. "You busy today? Thought we could grab lunch." "Sure," I said, though part of me didn't want to see her. Not until I understood what was happening. The cafe she picked was small, tucked near the old library where we used to go after school. Familiar places have a way of making lies harder to say. She was already there when I arrived, stirring sugar into her coffee, even though she never drank it sweet. Her nails tapped against the cup, rhythmic, nervous. "You and he seemed tense last night," she said after a pause. I tried to sound casual. "You think so?" She laughed softly. "Come on. I'm not blind." Silence settled between us. The clatter of dishes from the kitchen filled the gaps. Finally, she said, "He's been different lately. Quiet." Always has some excuse to leave the house. Her tone wasn't angry, just tired. I keep asking what's wrong, but he says it's work. It's always work. I didn't know what to say. The truth, that he'd come to me first, sat like a stone in my throat. Instead, I asked, "Do you still trust him?" Her eyes lifted to mine, steady but sad. "I want to." She looked away then, tracing the rim of her cup. "Sometimes I think he's hiding something. Not what people might assume. Just something that scares him." Her words sent a chill through me. Because that was exactly how he'd looked last night. Scared. Before I could ask more, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, his name, and for a second, something flickered across her face. "I'll be right back," she murmured, standing up. I watched her walk outside. Phone pressed her ear. The rain caught the light around her, turning her outline into something fragile. Through the window, I could see her talking, fast, agitated. Then she froze. Her hand went still. She turned toward the street, eyes wide. And just as I started to rise, a car door slammed from somewhere out of sight. She dropped the phone. I was already halfway to the door before I even realized I'd moved. Outside, the rain had slowed to a mist, but the air still smelled heavy, like something waiting to happen. My sister stood frozen on the sidewalk, phone lying in a shallow puddle beside her shoe. "What happened?" I asked. She didn't answer. Her gaze was fixed across the street. Then I saw him, her husband, standing beside his car, the driver's door still open, rain dripping from his hair. He looked like he'd been caught mid-decision, halfway between running and confessing. "I told you not to call me," she said finally, her voice breaking through the hum of traffic. He stepped forward, palms out. "You wouldn't answer my texts." I didn't know what else to do. People passed by, without looking, umbrellas tilted, heads down, as if this moment was invisible to everyone but us. I stayed by the cafe door, close enough to hear, but far enough to pretend I wasn't intruding. "What's going on?" I asked quietly. Neither of them looked at me. She folded her arms. "Go on. Tell her." He swallowed hard. "It's not what you think." "That's what people always say, right before it is what I think," she said. Her tone was sharp, but her hands trembled. He took a slow breath. "It's about the house." That threw me off. "What house?" "The one she and I bought last year," my sister said quickly, eyes never leaving his. "Except, turns out he didn't tell me everything about how we bought it." He shook his head. "I didn't lie. You didn't tell me we were behind on payments." The words hung there, solid, heavy. "I was going to fix it," he said. "I thought if I could just what?" she snapped. "Borrow more? Hide it until it's too late." He looked at me, desperate. "It's not just the house. There's more." The street noise faded behind the pounding in my ears. He continued, quieter now. "I lost my job 2 months ago. I've been pretending to go in every morning because I didn't know how to tell her. I was trying to get another one before she found out." My sister's face went still. "You lied every day?" He nodded once, eyes wet but steady. I thought I could fix it before it became her problem. A bus rolled by, throwing cold spray across the sidewalk. None of us moved. Finally, she turned away from him, facing me. "Did you know?" I shook my head. "He came to tell me last night, but you got home before he could." The silence after that felt endless. The rain started again, light, steady, almost deliberate. My sister wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, her voice shaking. "You should have told me the truth before everything started falling apart." He stepped closer, but she backed away. "I came today to do exactly that," he said softly. "But now it's worse." She looked at him for a long moment, all the anger, fear, and exhaustion in her face collapsing into something quieter. "Then tell me everything," she said. "No more hiding." He hesitated, looked past her, straight at me. And that was when I realized he wasn't just afraid of losing her. He was afraid of what else he'd have to admit next. The three of us ended up back at my sister's house. The drive was silent, the kind of silence that presses against your ribs and won't let you breathe right. When we walked in, everything looked the same. The framed photos on the wall, the soft hum of the refrigerator, her favorite candles still burning on the counter, but the air felt heavier. He didn't sit down right away. He stood in the middle of the room, dripping rain onto the rug, eyes flicking between us. "I didn't just lose my job," he said finally. I was fired. My sister's hand froze on the back of the chair. For what? He hesitated, then said it. Misuse of funds. The words landed like a punch. It wasn't what it sounds like, he added quickly. I didn't steal. I borrowed. I thought I could pay it back before anyone noticed. She stared at him, face pale. You took company money? He nodded once, shame coloring his voice. Only for a few days. Then I got caught. They made a deal. No charges, but I lost everything. And the mortgage, you used my name, she whispered. That's why they called the house. He didn't deny it. I felt the floor tilt, the weight of their unraveling pulling the room smaller. He looked at me then, desperate. That's why I came to you. I needed to tell someone. I thought you'd help me make her understand. My sister turned toward me, eyes wide, trembling. You knew. I didn't, I said quickly. Not all of it. He never said this. She laughed, a sound that cracked halfway through. He lied to both of us. He stepped forward. Please. I was trying to protect you. Protect me, she said, voice shaking. By ruining us? The lamp on the table flickered with the wind outside. For a long moment, none of us spoke. Then she grabbed her coat from the chair. I need air, she said. He followed her to the door. Wait, there's more you don't. But before he could finish, headlights flashed across the window. A car slowed in front of the house. A black sedan, engine idling. She froze. Who's that? He went pale. It's from the firm. They weren't supposed to. The knock came sharp and fast. 3 times. He looked at me, panic flooding his face. They know, he whispered. They weren't supposed to find me here. And just like that, everything we thought was over, wasn't. The knocking didn't stop. My sister stood frozen near the door, one hand still gripping her coat. Her husband looked like he was about to break apart, shoulders hunched, eyes darting, breathing uneven. Don't open it, he said. But she already was. 2 men in suits stood on the porch, rainwater pooling at their feet. They looked official, calm, professional, detached. One of them held an envelope. Mr. Hart? The taller one asked. Her husband nodded slowly. I believe you know what this is. The man handed him the envelope, then lowered his voice. You'll want to read it. Without another word, they turned and left, the car disappearing into the wet dark. He closed the door quietly. For a moment, all any of us could hear was the rain. He opened the envelope with shaking hands. Papers. Legal looking. His face went white as he skimmed the first page. What is it? My sister asked, her voice small. They're pressing charges, he said, barely audible. The deal's off. She sank into a chair, silent. I wanted to say something, anything, but there was nothing left to fix. Minutes passed before she finally looked at him again. You should call your lawyer. He nodded, eyes red. I will. Then softer, I'm sorry. It wasn't the kind of sorry meant to erase anything. It was the kind that comes when it's already too late. She didn't answer. Just sat there, arms wrapped around herself, staring at the floor. When he left with the papers, the house felt both too quiet and too full of noise, like memories pressing against the walls. I stayed with her that night. We didn't talk much. Just made tea, we didn't drink, and sat in the living room with the lights low. I should have seen it sooner, she whispered at one point. You trusted him, I said. That's not a mistake. She nodded, eyes glassy. He used to look at me like I was the only steady thing he had. And now? I asked. She took a deep breath. Now I think he was just trying not to drown. The rain finally stopped sometime after midnight. Before I left, she stood by the window, watching the streetlights shimmer on the wet pavement. Funny, she said softly. You never really know when a life starts falling apart. It just does. I wanted to say something comforting, but all I managed was, you'll get through this. She turned, and for the first time that night, she smiled. Faint, fragile, but real. I know, she said. I just need to remember how. Weeks later, she sent me a short message. He's taking responsibility. We're both trying to start over. I stared at the words for a long time before replying. Sometimes the truth doesn't save you. It just sets you free.